Hi, I'm Meryl Key, and this is my mystery school. This is the Heart of Tarot series, where we go through the entire tarot deck from start to finish with everything you need to know about tarot. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any uploads. And if you want to support my channel, a like, share, comment goes down really well. Thank you. This is number 8 in the series, where we go through the nitty-gritty of each card of the Major Arcana. And we're right at the peak of the narrative as the Fool grapples with inner conflict and loss. We get into the symbolism and the meaning of the Hanged Man, the Death card, and Temperance. And importantly, how to interpret them in a reading. At the end, we'll do a review of all the cards with tips to remember them, and we'll also do some useful tarot spreads. So get your cards ready, get your journals ready, and continue into the psychological stage of the Major Arcana. It's strange to think, after you've gone through chaos, learned to evaluate and hold yourself in, make a decision and make adjustments, that the next card the Fool has to meet is the Hanged Man. It's very still. It's not moving. It's not even really evaluating. For a moment now, just pause and write in your journal what you see in this card. What triggers you? What does it remind you of? The Hanged Man is a card of suspension and waiting. He's all tied up here in a very uncomfortable way. He looks upside down and trapped. But really, his face is very peaceful and passive, inactive. It's waiting for the right time. It's having patience for the sacrifice to move through. It's like cat wisdom. One of the rules of being a cat, pause at every threshold. And that's what this is. There's a threshold. You have to pause and wait before you can cross through. It looks upside down, but it works in reversal. So a key word for this card is changing your perspective. You tend to stay stuck until you can look at it from a different direction, a different way. This is the chrysalis of the whole of the Major Arcana story, where you're held in cocoon, not knowing what's happening, and yet there's deep transformation going on. This is that psychological turning point when you've been held stuck and suddenly the pieces drop in and you can reverse your position and move ahead, feeling more aligned. There's a whole lot of opposites coming together in this card, and yet it's strangely balanced and in harmony. The key words for the Hangman are self-sacrifice, a new outlook, a change in perspective, going through a time of waiting, having to have patience to let something grow and develop. It can also mean a hindrance or a block, feeling trapped, and it's metamorphosis. It's like the duck swimming on top of the water and its little feet going on underneath the water that you can't see. Let's have a look at this card because it shows balance in every way, even though it seems uncomfortable and a bit distorted. It's a number 12, and 12 breaks down very simply. 1 + 2 = 3, the Empress. But in this world, everything is upside down. So that creative process is halted. Even in giving birth, there's that time of transition when everything kind of stops before the real labour begins. This structure, where he's hung from, is called a T-gallows. We've got the ivy pushed right out to the edge. It's something a little bit similar to our Magician card again, but here the growth is lush and fertile. Here it's without flowering, without blooming. Nevertheless, this growth represents resurrection. The man is hung, tied by his right foot, arms behind his back and his chest left open. There's this halo, or they call it a nimbus, around his head, and as we've said, very passive face despite this discomfort. So there's this element of childlike sacrifice and even saintliness with this. And when this card has got difficult cards around it, this sacrifice could be martyrdom, procrastination, getting stuck, being holier than thou by holding back. There's really simple clothes here, so we know this person isn't a nobleman or a lord. This is a simple, everyday young man, potentially even the fool. The blue is the colour of water, meaning the emotions, and the red, the ego, the fire, the passion. Tiny bit of yellow intellect going on there. There's something about bringing that element of fire and water together. Background colour, being this pale grey, is that liminal space, a time of inactivity and maybe even confusion or a fog. There's no background, there's no landscape. He's caught there in his own sort of isolated environment. This is the card that says surrender and sacrifice can bring illumination. This is the stage of the journey where a caterpillar becoming a butterfly goes into the cocoon. It's terrifying when all you've got to do is trust and wait and know that something quite major is changing everything around you and within you. It's metamorphosis. Until now, this caterpillar has just been happily on the surface of the earth, munching away at caterpillar leaves, learning to dodge from predators, seeing how other caterpillars do it. But now something quite different has taken over. And it's the time of real transformation going on here, because we know the caterpillar will become a butterfly once it emerges from this place. But the caterpillar doesn't know that. It's a time of surrender and sacrifice. There's something that needs to be given up with this card. So it can be a way of thinking. It could be a relationship that doesn't serve you. It could be a job that keeps you hung suspended. Internally, there's this desire to grow and expand and transform. So it's actually a very exciting time. The Hangman is linked to the astrological sign of Neptune. Neptune is the god of the seas of the unconscious, the depths of soul dreams, the depths of hopes and illusion. Neptune is the planet of searching for soul growth through sacrifice and spirituality. Neptune can cast illusions or bring magic. This hangman represents that spiritual confusion and loss that happens before breakthrough. This card is that inverted place between the spiritual world and the physical world. It's like seeing through the looking glass into the other side. Everything's a little bit distorted, but a new world is opening up. It's about a symbolic death. And once you've been through this time, the world never really looks the same again. Are you in a trap of your own making? What is the difference between a lost soul and a free spirit? Has procrastination and indecision and just giving up and waiting held you back? Change your perspective and look at things differently. Can you imagine what life would be like if you released what's been holding you back? The first thing to know about the death card, it is not about an actual death. It's transformation, it's change, it's letting go and it's surrender. It's allowing what is outgrown to drop and fall so that the new life can begin. For a moment, take a look at your death card. Spend a few moments, pause the video and write down in your journal what you see here, what it brings up for you. This card is really uncomfortable for some people. It looks scary and it's meant to be scary. Death is scary. It's about letting go of the ego, of everything you knew, of facing something you don't get to control, and death has the final word. And despite that uncomfortable feeling, this card is about regeneration and being able to grow a new skin, grow a new structure, grow a new way of being. That's the point. When you're transforming, you don't usually know that you're growing. it just feels like fear and the end. You're very much caught in the pain and the loss of this card when it comes up. It's frightening to be at the end of something. But that grief also ends up connecting you with others and connecting you to parts of yourself that maybe you had hidden, that maybe were stunted and lost. The death is just kind of an amazing human experience. So when the death card comes up for you, you've got to face up and let something go. You've got to face up that it's no longer heading the way that you thought it should. You've got to face up that you don't control it. And the more you can accept that and roll with that, the easier death is to experience, and the easier it is to process and get the regeneration out of it. The death card needs a lot of compassion, but it is a no card of the tarot deck. The key words for the death card: transformation, change, regeneration, loss, and unexpected endings. When the death card comes up in a reading, it means change is upon you. And if you don't surrender to that change, you'll be suffering over your own suffering. Reversed, this card means it's very hard for you to accept those endings. The regeneration that needs to come through is kept stunted or stuck. Death is a no, whichever way you look at it. And yet, it's just part of the cycle. Let's have a look at the symbols and the imagery of the death card. It's a number 13, lucky 13, 13 moons every year. It's a lunar number. 13 is also made up of a 1 and a 3, equaling 4. Death is inevitable. 4 is that number of structure and permanence and solidity. It's like when you've taken the journey and reach that point of abundance and growth on the physical plane, you have to meet a certainty, and that certainty is death. The skeleton in the black armour is very sort of warlike. It's the ego laid bare. The other horsemen we've seen in the tarot have been the chariot or knights, but this figure's very apocalyptic. The pose is profile, and it shows that it's moving away from the past. The white horse we see again in the sun card, it's moving forward. Red eye shows that sort of supernatural force, focus. It's relentless. The horse is trampling down on these figures. We can see over here someone's lying dead with their crown beside them. The king is dead. The others here, the bishop here is pleading. This woman, who looks a bit like our strength card, is swooning, and the child's looking up offering. Neither your innocence or your strength or your religious nature is going to stop death. And what does this red feather remind you of? It's in the fool's hat, look. Red is the colour of blood and courage, strength to continue. It's passion and boldness. But where the fool here and his feather was waving in the wind, ready and open for anything, clearly by now it's been through the wars. It's looking very bedraggled. The fool also now has a helmet. He has to steel himself against hardship and challenge. This whole little aspect back here in the corner is quite a significant area of the card, and yet no one here is looking at it. The towers we'll see again in the moon card coming up, showing there's a gateway. There's a new world on the other side, and the sun is rising or maybe setting. The city's way there in shadow. It's a dream further on. Everything is focused right here, right now, in this kind of crushing loss. The landscape is sort of littered with different items that we've seen in the deck. This boat here shows up in the Three of Wands. These puddles and trees show up perhaps with the Temperance card, the star. Waterfalls are in the Empress, the High Priestess. This is the part of the Fool's journey where if it was a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, We know the Hanged Man is where it enters that chrysalis stage, the cocoon. And this is the part where it has no control over what's happening. Its internal body has totally liquefied. It completely transforms from its form of life. And so there's a lot of fear and the unknown associated with that, and there is absolutely nothing you can do to prevent it. There's no going back. The old way is completely done. The Fool has to learn to accept loss and defeat with this card. When a death card comes up in a reading, it means the old form has died and can't continue in its current way. This mounted figure is an unstoppable force. And as we said, it hardly ever means an actual human death, though it could mean the end of a job or a relationship, changes upon you, and bargaining or cheating or denying is only going to cut it for a very short time. Something has to break down and break free. So this card is about accepting that change and moving on. The Death card is linked to the astrological sign of Scorpio. Scorpio is ruled by Pluto, the god of death. It's a water sign that's fixed, it's deep, dark, intense, it's loyal and honest, it's brutal truth. Life, death, birth, sex, taxes, that's what this card is about. Inevitability. How do you deal with change? Is death an ending or a beginning for you? The final card in the middle section, the psychological growth of the Fool's journey, is the Temperance card. After death, where we've experienced loss and sorrow, we now get this. For a moment, pause the video and write in your journal your first impressions of the Temperance card. Everything in this card is balanced and even, fair, flowing. It's very still, but it has movement. It's about uniting opposites, and it's a very fluid card that finds diversity and integrates it. It doesn't see difference. With this card, wholeness is found when you unite and integrate all the fragmented pieces. It's finding the parts and accepting what can't be loved and giving it love. This card brings all those fragmented pieces home and helps everything get flowing with acceptance and generosity and simplicity. It's a fantastic card to recover from trauma, to heal from illness, to get sobriety. It's the card that comes after that death card. And it's lucky that after death, we get this time to healthily grieve and rebuild ourselves. The key words for the Temperance card are moderation, reconciliation, integration, sobriety, healing, being calm and centered, finding peace, and healing and balancing your relationships. Let's have a closer look at this peaceful, balanced card. It's a number 14. 14 made up of a 1 and a 4, equaling 5. Magician, Emperor, Hierophant. Having the will and the call and the initiation, finding stability and strength and purpose in that, and then reaching up beyond yourself to find a spiritual connection. Number 5 is a number of change, and in this instance, the change comes after death, where we find peace, where we have to integrate what's going on. The other way at looking at a 14 is 7 plus 7. 7 is the Chariot. What happens if you get 2 chariots together, just butting heads? The only way they're going to find a solution is to reconcile, compromise, find moderation. This card is about that ethical rising above the needs of the ego, using power in a wise way, being able to yield. When the Temperance card is out of balance, it's like two chariots at war, an eye for an eye. The central figure in this card is this beautiful angel Iris. Iris is a goddess of rainbows, and she forms a bridge to the heavens. She's a messenger goddess. I actually see her as an androgynous figure. To the Greeks, she was female, and the female counterpart to Hermes, who I also see as androgynous. So as a pair, they represent that union of masculine, feminine, feminine, masculine, and the fluid space in that range. The angel Iris carries 2 goblets of nectar and feeds them to the gods. This flow represents the emotions, connection, communication. Our angel Iris is holding one above and one below, separating them, mixing them. This is such a powerful metaphor. Harmony comes when we fully embrace the other as no different to ourselves. There's a universal consciousness, and this card embodies that. There's 1 foot on the land and 1 foot in the water, representing that balance of solid and structure with flowing and communicative. We see this pattern repeated when we get to the Star card, which operates at a higher vibration than this Temperance card. But the message is similar. Balance, nourishment, connection to the feminine through the earth and the water, emotional safety, feeling contained. And this pool is very calm and clear. There's a few ripples indicating that higher vibration that we're reaching for here, and even the psychic nature of this card with an angel in the middle. The mountains in the distance show a path coming up between the two of them. Again, it's an indication of the journey integrating 2 different aspects and finding a middle road. The sun here is linked to the Death card. And that pale grey sky again, saying this is a neutral card. It's the grey area in between, the place of integration. The white robe of purity that we've seen in the Strength card with the Magician, the square with a triangle, brings in that number 7, the 4 of the square plus the 3 of the triangle. It gives structure to the movement of that 3 shape. Growth is contained for integration, and links again to the square of the Chariot card and the brooch of the Justice card. The radiating halo matches this rising sun. Inner peace is reflected in outer peace, as above, so below. This links it to the Hanged Man in a way where this halo is inverted. In the Temperance card, it's put back in its rightful place. The Temperance card is where the Fool has to learn how to unite opposites, how to balance the ego with the emotions, how to find the middle ground and do it with grace and modesty and humility. It's about taking a break to recover after you've had trauma or that terribly sort of numbing experience of a death. It might mean that you take a break, like you go away on a retreat, you step out of life for a little bit, you go and spend time in a healing environment, restoring. And in matters of health, this card also refers to the balancing of the fluids. So the balancing of hormones, the need to, drink, wash, shower, cry, sweat, to actually, emit and share your bodily fluids. If it's got a devil with it, I would be looking at those fluids and what you're drinking as being part of an addiction or a shameful aspect that you don't want to look at. So I can see this card in terms of someone drinking too much or even being alcoholic. What happens if there's too much peace? And this card is inverted. You can be stuck in a rut. You can become a doormat. You can become too easygoing and too compromising. You can be taken advantage of. Maybe you've taken the eye off the ball. Maybe you're settling for less. The cards around this will show you where you're leaking your energy away. If the card is the Lovers, it shows there's no harmony or unity in the relationship. They're operating separately, they can't find middle ground, or they've become platonic. If the Hanged Man is near this, I'd be looking at health risks, something lying dormant, potentially in the fluids of the body. If the Magician or the Hierophant was with this card, I'd be questioning if there's an element of devotion or handing over your power to a guru or a teacher and not being able to think for yourself. Upright, this is such an amazing, beautiful card. But reversed, it means there's no peace, there's no harmony, and there's no compromise and reconciliation. This card is about what you put in, you'll get back. It's about giving and receiving. So it connects you to community, it connects you to like-minded others, it connects you to social media, to your local neighbourhood, your church, anywhere where you can find this very easy flow of sharing. There's a message that what you put out comes back with kindness. This card is linked to the sign of Sagittarius, the Archer, a centaur, meaning half man, half horse. Sagittarius is a sign that learns to go beyond the normal rules of society. It's a mutable fire sign. It's very changeable. It's very inspiring. It's eager to learn. Just as Sagittarius the Archer has to go beyond the material, physical, emotional means, this card is able to draw down some really wise, ancient, akashic knowledge of how human beings have to relate and get on. This card for me is very, very relevant in the current times we're living, because it's not just about embracing diversity, it's about integrating all aspects and seeing life on a scale, not a start, a middle and an end with only one result, but everything we see is fluid on that line. So in this regard, I would think that the Temperance card is a great card for LGBTQI community, for anyone that's in that sort of pansexual, transsexual, asexual, whatever that is. This card embraces every aspect of it and knows that we're part of one race. So I really see this Temperance card as a powerful integrating archetype for where we're heading in this 21st century, where the extremes that we had in the 20th century no longer apply and are no longer part of our overall global and psychological development. This card to me very much represents that global awakening of sharing and integrating that we are one race, one people on one planet, and we have to learn how to get along and do it wisely and modestly and without excess. This is an angel delivering that message from the higher place, and this angel shows that duality is very much part of our future development and our future evolvement. Let's have a quick look at the second stage, the psychological level. Strength, feminine strength, the strength of vulnerability, the power to harness the ego. The Hermit, isolation, introspection, learning to follow your own light. The Wheel of Fortune, the pivot point of the whole tarot. Fate, destiny, luck, opportunity, chaos. We move to Justice, number 11, order, impartial, fairness, weighing things up and being able to assess. The Hanged Man, having to make a decision and move from a still position, allowing time to pass and making sacrifice. It's the card of metamorphosis. The Death card, letting go, freeing yourself of the old ways, the old relationships, the old ways of thinking, the job you hate, and finding new life, accepting an inevitable ending. And then the Temperance card, recovery from grief and trauma, being able to integrate and process what's gone on in this whole second level, the psychological level. Let's do a few spreads now, using all of your first 16 cards. So we're going to do a 4-card spread. It's a classic, and it just sets a clear boundary around the issues I'm asking. So it's a bit of an extension of the 3-card spread, but also you can expand it in different ways. And the question is, I want to buy a new car. I found one I like, and I want to know if the tarot thinks it's a good idea for me to go ahead and put an offer on. So the first card, the position of the past, the Emperor. My old car has served me well. It's been reliable and stable, but it's kind of past its use-by date. You can see with the Emperor, he's way out here in the mountains. He's not very up-to-date and current. Where I am right now, Temperance card. I'm having to weigh up different things like my budget and my needs. And also, I'm not looking for anything flashy. I'm just looking for something to get me around. The Temperance card says I'm not being excessive in my wish for what I want. The challenge, the High Priestess. There's something in this car I don't know about. There's some secret, some mystery under the hood. This is not a good sign if I'm looking to buy a material, physical object. This is the challenge position. Without the information, I could be making a bad choice. The outcome, Wheel of Fortune. I don't think I'm on the right path with this car. I think another opportunity will come up, and potentially getting into this one is just going to pull me into chaos. Let's try it with a different question. And we'll try a more psychological line with this one, a relationship. The question will be, how will I feel after my date tonight? So our first card is in the past. In the past, really I've stepped out of the dating scene. I've had some nice friends, but I haven't found anyone that really struck my romantic interest. Where I am now, I'm having to find my courage. I'm having to balance between what my wounded ego is saying, like feeling rejected or there's no one there for me, and balancing that with really my sense of true worth and getting back to the purity of my purpose, which is to find companionship. The challenge is the man himself. How will I feel after this date? The challenge is this man may have children that he needs to attend rather than a relationship. This man may be tied to his job or too old for me. This man may be too conservative, or really, this man may not have the security that I'm looking for. The challenge here with the Emperor, he can be quite tyrannical. And according to this card, I'm a little bit wary of that. This card could indicate I'm coming from a place searching for peace after a tumultuous power struggle in relationships. And if this is the challenge, then I'd have to be watching if I felt dominated with this person. And the final card, the outcome, how will I feel after my date tonight? The Hermit, wiser and alone. I don't think this person is the one I'm looking for. I'm quite happy in my own company. The Hermit in relationships is a bit like this. It's platonic, it's a spiritual thing, but it's not romantic. I've learned from the experience and I'm trusting my intuition on this one. You can see with this guy as the challenge. He's quite stern. He's a bit set in his ways for me. So have a go yourself. With your first 16 cards, you can get some really good readings. Now we've reached the end of the second stage of the Fool's journey, the psychological line. How do you think you're going with the story unfolding? Do you have a favourite card yet? And do you have a card that you just can't respond to? Or even one that you have a reaction, a negative reaction to? As an exercise to get to know your cards, try your own review. Start with the Fool card and finish the story as the Fool meets all the other cards. So for instance, my sentence might go something like, when the Fool meets the High Priestess, he learns the experience of the mysteries of the inner worlds. When the Fool meets the Temperance card, he learns how to balance opposites and achieve duality. When the Fool meets the Emperor, he learns about authority, order, and structure. When the Fool meets the Hangman, he learns about self-sacrifice and patience. See how you go, creating a kind of visual storyboard with your first 16 cards. This middle stage of the Fool's journey is very, very challenging because it's about juggling opposites, dealing with duality, dealing with opposing forces, and finding an integration point in the middle. It's also going to be testing your own personal development and your own personal growth. Tarot does that, it's archetypal. So you'll find this, perhaps that this second stage is quite difficult to get on with and really sink your teeth into. That's okay. This is meant to be fun and it's your personal journey. Remember, there is no right way and no wrong way. So I congratulate you for persevering this far, and the journey will continue in our third stage, the stage of spiritual development and wholeness completion. I'm Meryl Key, and this is my Mystery School. Thanks for tuning in on this little trip into the heart of tarot. Find me on Instagram at my_mystery school or on my website www.merylkey.com.